Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's good to see you, First Unitarian Society. Welcome, 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 friends. Welcome, visitors. I am so glad to be with you today. I am the Reverend Dr. J. Exodus Hooper. I am the summer minister for this season, and I wanted to just give us a shout out today as we get ready to move forward into this beautiful summer. So I will be hosting along with many other friends who are a part of this community. And as you continue maybe to come and visit and join us online, please feel free to tune in. Also, my online family, do me a favor. If you anywhere you are, just hit like and share so that we can get the news out that we are still kicking and moving lively here at First Unitarian Society. That's what we do here. I am so excited to have our musical guest, Amos, with us today. Always giving us some beautiful sounds, so thank you so much, Amos. And Ian Snyder, thank you so much on violin. Let's give him a round of applause. And you know, I know it's probably a little corny, but I just, if you don't mind with doing this with me, just turn to your left or your right. If you feel like you need to move or shake, greet somebody with a hearty handshake or with a wave. If they got a mask on, give them a peace, you know, pass the peace kind of thing. Like, I see you, you see me, y'all look good, all right. Yes. And so I welcome you here to the First Unitarian Society. Yes, as we would often say, the home of congregational humanism, but I like to think of us as a community that is beyond belief, constantly practicing ways to do those things beyond belief. And I just want to invite you to join us in this love work, in this justice work, as we seek our best humanist high ideals. And now, we are at the next thing. It's like
hello. Okay.
Come on, boys.
So yes, I guess it's us next. We're very happy to be here sharing again music, and many of you, of course, know Ian, with whom we've played together here already 2 recitals. So we have 3 pieces for today. The first piece is the first movement of a Sonatina for violin and piano by the Czech composer Antonín Dvořák. And what is very interesting about this composer is that he actually came to the United States at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, around that time, and he was highly influenced by the music that he heard here, and especially by African-American spirituals and all that tradition. And it's so fascinating how he actually incorporated that into his own music, blended with, could say, with the Czech folklore. So yeah, that is very beautiful. Then as a second piece, we'll have a piece by an American composer, McDowell, and it's a piece originally for piano, but it really sounds like a song. It's called To a Wild Rose, and I think it's a beautiful, expressive melody. And as a closer, we have the third movement of a sonata by Beethoven, for violin and piano. It's probably his most well-known sonata, the Spring Sonata, and we'll play the Scherzo, which is a very fun and short piece. So I hope you all enjoy it.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And now we will light our chalice. Thank you, Paul. And we will use our sixth principle today, the goal of our world community with peace. The goal of our world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Y'all ready? I'm gonna step over here because y'all know I can't stay up behind here too long. Is my mic on yet? Yes. Okay, because we're gonna put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Most of y'all know this, right? No. No? Some? Okay, that's right. We have some visitors. That's right. Y'all about to move with me. All right. So it's really simple. It's put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. All right? Amos, you ready to give us? Kick us in. And lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't give up. I'm sorry. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But here I am, right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Everybody, congregational covenant, here we go. Love is the spirit of this place and servants its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Take a deep breath if you have it. This is a portion in our service. Normally there are joys and sorrows. I only have one sorrow to announce, but it is not one that is of deep grief. But our current retiree is in the hospital, Reverend David. He is not feeling well. I spoke with him yesterday, and he was sitting up. He's been in the hospital because of COVID. As we know, this is why it's very important for us to take care of each other and what that might look like. So I want us to be very mindful of that. But he is doing fine. I'm going to check on him today because I told him, I said, well, and knowing he's probably watching now, so I'm going to let him know. I'm going to check on you. But we are going to do libations today. And as many of you are familiar with, when I do libations, I particularly like to use grain. I find it to be very important to name those individuals, those people that have shared love with us in the world. Their love being forward-thinking, progressive, that has inspired us. And I want you to put someone today, because of the topic today, I want you to begin to actually think of our future, some of our youth. Maybe not in this congregation, but maybe of your own. Those young people that you've cultivated relationships with that need our voice more than ever as we look at today's topic. Because education is changing, our world is changing, and democracy is being challenged on every hand. And I want to just have us think about a few names. So this is a little smaller one, but I promise I'll get more because I see we got a lot more people today. So I'll be sparing with these. But at the end of it, we will say Ashe, which means to make it happen. But I will start off the names. I will say my nephews, Kenneth. And y'all can add.
And John Burke.
Sure.
Julia and Rudy.
Julia and Rudy.
Paul and Rebecca.
Sure.
Eloise and Sadie.
Shay.
Caitlin and Brendan.
Shay.
Lainey.
Ashe.
JJ.
Baby Michael. Charlotte and Arthur.
Ashe. Ashe.
Anthony and Dominic.
Ashe. You may overlap. Yes, you may. Ashe. Yes. Should be like a waterfall in here. Ashe. Ashe.
Stella and Franklin.
Ashe. Arthur. Yes, Ashe. Ashe.
Maria Janae.
Ashe. 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 Ashe.
Lynn Aurora.
Ashe.
We're done.
Ashe.
Our 12 grandchildren.
Come on, our 12 grandchildren.
Wow.
Michelle and Tariatu and their babies.
Ashe. Ashe.
All the trans children in schools in the South and up here.
Ashe.
Liz.
Ashe. And to every name that we cannot name at this present moment, and to the names that we do not know, we say 3 times, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Let us hold them in our memory. Let us hold them in our thought. Let us hold them because they are the ones that we have been waiting for. Just like we are enough, they are the ones we are waiting for. So thank you so much for that. breathe in. I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. That's intense. That high pitch, I was like, hold on now. You taking me to another place, my friend. You don't play with that violin like that. That thing is in your neck, the way you just played. Well, I want to do something a little different before I hop into my talk. Normally, we would have a wisdom moment or something like that. I feel like it's important because of this topic. I want to bring in a human experience, if I may, because I feel like we need to be in touch with what happens in these kind of conversations when they get a little weighted. And so I reached out to Erica Bovey, and if I can just have my beloved come up here and share stage with me for a few seconds. Because I was like, I got on the phone, I was like, girl, did you hear about Oklahoma? And I'm like, you gotta explain to me what's going on with your people. Because I was like, no, not 10 Commandments, not reading Bibles in classrooms. Like, how do we do that? And you know, Erica and her family have had experiences going, I guess, from Oklahoma to multiple places. And I'm just curious because I don't know anything. Guess what? I'm a New Yorker. Right? I really don't. So I'm not going to assume I do, right? But I think you can speak to the location. I think you can speak a little bit to some of that experience that, like, did you see this coming?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Explain. I mean, I'm curious. Spill the tea, not mine.
Probably around 2010, 2012. They actually made legislature that they can display the Ten Commandments in the courthouses.
Oh.
And the only reason that did not happen was you can thank the Satanic Temple. Because the Satanic Temple took them and it was like, okay, well then we can have a statue of Bahamut. And because of the way the legislature was taken, it could happen. So the answer to that was, oh, well then we won't put up the Ten Commandments.
Wow.
So it's been coming for a hot minute.
Okay.
Something I experienced living in Oklahoma is they look at places like Texas and Florida, and they see what they're trying to do, and they take notes, and they go, we're going to do it, but we're going to sneakily do it, so it's going to pass.
So when you think about like the experience of like, because now, you know, of course your family's here, so like, and there's so much, when we think about religious rights and religious freedoms, like this could have affected your family big time and your development with, I guess my question now is, how does your humanism respond to such a thing now?
So as most of you know, I'm fairly new to humanism still. When we lived in Oklahoma, I just knew that I wasn't what was going on down there. So the beginning of the end, when we realized we needed to move, was I was a PTA mom. I was the treasurer or secretary of the PTA at my child's school, and one day I was there doing treasurer things, and I was talking to the principal, and all of a sudden I look out, and there's a bunch of kids running around with either white flags or like plaid flags, and they were dressed up as settlers or indigenous people. And I look at the principal and I'm like, what's going on here? And she was actually one of the very few Democrats that I knew in Oklahoma. And she goes, oh, it's Land Run Day. And I go, excuse me, what's that? And if you know about the Land Run, like, you know, it's when Oklahoma had decided that they would give away the territory that had been set aside for the indigenous cultures, specifically the Seminole and the Creek people. And settlers were able to come over and take off the white flag and stake that land as theirs. And they were celebrating that. And I literally looked at the principal with, you know, my little Hadassah was a baby, and I was like, what the fuck?
Come on, PTA mom.
And she was like,
yeah, that's exactly what we need today.
She was like, I have to teach it. It's the curriculum. I have to teach it. And you know me, as this was actually I was very proud of this parent fail. I did not see the flyer for this day. If I had seen it, my child wouldn't have went to school. But there was my little girl running around in her Under Armour while everybody else was dressed up. I went to a Thanksgiving feast for when Hadassah was in pre-K, and my little girl was dressed up as a pilgrim.
Wow.
And they also had indigenous people. I knew it was wrong. And this was in 2014. I was hoping maybe it had been changing. I just met another trans family that moved up here from Oklahoma. One of the wives is they were not a trans family, but they were a queer family. The wife was a professor at one of the universities, and she's like, when I said Land Run Day, she understood. And literally all these people are like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
It's still going on.
Wow.
And so I'm not surprised at all with the Ten Commandments. They've just been trying to find a way to put the Bible in school.
Wow, thank you, because I mean, I feel like it's so important to have stories that we can connect with, and I'm glad to learn a little bit more. I mean, I'm kind of not surprised, because even in spaces, and as some of you know, part of my life I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, so I'm very familiar with seeing the Confederate daughters, the daughters of the Confederacy sitting in my elementary classroom, and being very sure that even in the 90s, I had to go sit in the back because it was they were in the class to visit. So these are things that there are still things that are tainted in the ground, if you will. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that and opening it up for us. I appreciate that. May I?
Yeah,
come here?
absolutely.
Yes. Oh, thank you for your survival too, because that's big. I think it's important to, really get to the place where we can actually say to our government, what the, okay? I do. I feel like we need to get there, and I think most of us are probably deep down on the inside asking that question when we look and hear the things that are coming up. The topic today is something that I've been playing with and thinking about and pondering, because I've been asking the question, who commands me? Who commands me? When we think about 10 Commandments being up in a classroom and Bible-based teaching, now don't get me wrong, hear me out, because I get it. Now I'm not so humanist that I'm no religious freedom good, because I think that everybody should have their place and their time to shine. But don't impose that on me, right? Don't impose that on me. And I want to lift up the voice of one of my favorite ancestors, James Baldwin, really fast, as he says, I love America more than any other country in the world. Exactly for this reason. I insist on the right to criticize it perpetually. All right, look. He goes on to say, if the concept of God has any validity or any use, it can only be to make us larger, freer, and more loving. If God cannot do this, it is time we get rid of him. Right? Come on, Baldwin. When we look at that kind of work, we have to consider what Baldwin is offering us to do. And so I find it is our place in this community, particularly our framework of how we live, is not to just show up here on Sundays. Understand that this is a public declaration. When this congregation was established, it was a public display and a public declaration and display of our religious freedom. So when you get up in the morning to come here to be a humanist, to not be codependent on supernatural, but lean maybe in your reason and your logic and your free thought and those things that hold you and make you feel grounded and knowing who you are and knowing your worth, it is a public declaration, because you're not hopping up into somebody's framework based off of a Bible. You don't have to love queer folk based off of a God. You get to actually meet people where they are and lean into their experience. And that is what I'm inviting you to do today. Here is the word from some Audre Lorde. I left you a little bit of an excerpt up there, but Audre Lorde says this in a poem that says, "Who said it was simple? There are so many roots to the tree of anger that sometimes the branches shatter before they bear. Sitting in Neckwood, the women rally before the march, discussing the problematic girls they hired to make free." It's very complicated. An almost white counterman passes a waiting brother to serve them first, and the ladies neither notice nor reject the slighter pleasures of their slavery. And they sit here wondering, and I sit here wondering, which part of me will survive all these liberations? This is Audre Lorde offering us a framework to begin to look at the various intersections we have. there are aspects of our humanity that is constantly going to be challenged. And we know, based off of the way that these laws are being set up, we are being called to look at our full humanity in essence. So how do we handle a country, and particularly those individuals who are so deeply rooted in a kind of a national, Christian nationalism? I want to bring in this video of one of my favorite representatives in Tennessee, Justin Jones.
President Reagan, do you believe that it is racist to prohibit concepts on systemic racism in the history of America?
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, my belief is in God. I settle other things with facts and data. The fact of the matter is, sir, this bill is not racist. It is not unconstitutional.
Representative Jones.
We keep bringing up God, but God says in Isaiah 10, woe to those who pass unjust laws that hurt the poor and rob them of their rights. And so stop using God to justify your bigotry. Stop using God to justify hatred and racism. Stop using God to put
Representative Jones, you are out of order.
Right? I have to say, I wanted to show y'all this clip because we see a very interesting interaction between Representative Jones and how he approaches the context. In this particular moment, what he's arguing is a bill against teaching Juneteenth in Tennessee classrooms, right? And so it doesn't pass, but he's got to argue his point. And as he does so, right, his last name, Representative Reagan, says, you know, I follow God, right? And then could proceeds to say that God is about the data and the facts. And my little humanist heart was like, what? What you talking about, Willis? Right? It's that moment and that actually I appreciate how Jones decides to use sacred texts to push back on his colleague to be like, no. Do not use biblical violence to justify your bigotry, your hatred. This is challenging for us because some of us don't come using sacred texts, ancient wisdom, and so oftentimes I have found my beloved friends and my beloved community is like, we won't say anything at all. And in some way, we get a little pious a bit too with the idea that, well, you're talking about God, that has nothing to do with me. And I'm going to continue to push on democracy, and I'm going to continue to push on. And then we realize we've almost exempted ourselves from the conversation. That's tough to say to us because I like to think that we are deeply engaged in it, but we're not when we decide to pull back. There are so many traditions, particularly if you've ever run into folk Black Americans who identify within the Nation of Islam. They are very well versed in biblical texts. They are very well versed in the Hebrew Bible. They will know all of the prophets, and some of them, I actually can say, know Sanskrit. It is imperative for those who identify within the Nation of Islam to be highly educated people regarding other people's traditions. And we cannot avoid that. I want to encourage us to hear that from a space of love, that we can't avoid the conversations anymore, and we can't avoid the idea of getting gritty with some of these Christian nationalists. And how do we do that? And so I thought to myself, I want to bring us into an understanding about what religion is. So what is religion? If I can get that slide up, that'd be great. Because we got to talk about what religion is. Religion comes from the Latin word regilio, which means to bind. So all these people who want freedom of religion, I won't play with it right now. But the truth of the matter is, it means to bind, right? It means in some way that they're not free thinking, right? But they are using, they're in a loop of using doctrine, using God to kind of loop them in. And so I have to bring up the idea here briefly about Anthony Penn. I'm sure that some of you have heard when Reverend David talked about a book called By These Hands. And By These Hands talks about a particular slave by the name of James Hay. James Hay was an enslaved person at the time in the early, I believe, 1800s, just shy of 1800s. And what he does, Penn spends his time trying to unpack James Hay's experience. I sum it up as so. James Hay, as an enslaved person who was abused for unfinished free labor, after one severe beating, a woman offered James Hay some religious consultation. She says, "The Lord will help you with your tasks today." So she tells him that. Literally, James Hay, believing that the Lord will help him, is so highly motivated to work for a bit and then decides to take a nap because the Lord will help him. Unfortunately, this literal embodied interpretation causes James to be punished again. So the Lord didn't help him at all. He then goes to the overseer and explains to the overseer that, look, clearly the God that you say that's going to help me can't help me, and I can guarantee you I'm the one who's doing the work, not God. And I'm going to prove it to you. This is what he does in the documentation. This is historical documentation. And he actually, James Hay actually proves to them, to a point where he actually ends up, the overseer actually hires a few religious scholars of the day to test the theory of this enslaved person who says, there's no God, this is me. I do this work for you. I work this land. I build this. And, I find, the question for me, I can't even pretend. The question for me is that we are so interested, and if I may put it in time for us, I find it interesting that we can celebrate a all-creating, white manifestating God who takes a rest, gets to take a nap on the seventh day, but we're ready to beat somebody's ass when they decide if they're on the margins. That doesn't work for me. Because there's no comparative there. It really causes us to really think, why are we so interested in punishing and penalizing those who are on the margins? Why do banks penalize folk who don't have money in the bank? You get a $40 fee if you overdraft. We penalize the poor, but we're fine with not taxing the rich. We've got some, just as of late, in New Jersey, now you'll get penalized for being homeless. That don't make no sense. Because you're homeless, you get penalized. We have done a horrible job trying to get engaged with justice here. And so what are we after has been my question as humanists. What do we need to do? I want to offer us this, a little quick history. James Hay is a product, is a counter-narrative to this fancy brother on the next slide. This is Cotton Mather. He wrote this pamphlet. He's a Boston brother. Sorry, George. He actually writes these pamphlets, and he begins to talk about how to Christianize the Negro. And there are some steps here to do so. Well, Jay, we're supposed to be talking about education today. I don't think we can talk about education until we talk about how America has sought to do various formations of assimilation. I'm only speaking from this context, but I can guarantee you most of your ancestors who come from various places in Ireland and so on and so forth, they were not American. They were from Scotland. They had accents. They were Jewish. And they had to assimilate just to exist here. We are in the United States of amnesia. It wants us to forget how we not only got here, but how we and why we actually belong here, right? In our human nature. This land is not our land. Some of us came here running, seeking refuge. Some folk came here forced. This is a complex place. And as a result, people have been displaced, mishomed, ended up with diseases. So when we look at people like Cotton Mather, he's like, if I Christianize you, if I educate you into something that is not your own, I can take this us and now make it a we. Christianization has a lot to do with, when we think about Christian nationalism, it's very much so Christianization. It creates an us versus them. There are very clear distinctions of an us versus them. That is why the Conservative Party is struggling today. So here's what I want to bring up. Slide. He's such a happy-go-lucky rep. This is the Louisiana superintendent that just recently signed the 10 Commandments shall be posted in every classroom. His quote, though, at the press conference was, to respect the rule of law, you got to respect the original lawgiver. Don't play with it now, Paul. Right? Hammurabi would be a perfect example, but he could only go as far back as Moses. He could only go as far back as Moses. And this is the original lawgiver. Next slide. Here is Oklahoma superintendent. Now, what interests me about this is that he describes the Bible as a historical and cultural touchstone. And I leave here on this little moment for my YouTube family. I want to make sure that we read this part, which is the Department of Education would be losing civil rights protections and ending Title I funding for K through 12. So places like LoveWorks in our building will be affected, not by him. This actually comes from Project 2025. Whew, right? So when we think about the tension that we are facing with this happening in education, with this being something that has always been a part of our country trajectory, they will use doctrine as pedagogy, right? They will take curriculum and require that it is biblical. Dewey and Darwin will no longer be a conversation. And with this being on the rise, with us seeing a trajectory within our nation to see public funding cut, public school systems are going to be in a lot of trouble as we keep looking at what's happening. We just saw a rough debate. I'm not going to say it was cute. I'm not. I can't sit here and lie to y'all. As much as I like to identify, with supporting Democrats every once in a while, I'm not going to lie. I can say that from here. I'm honest. I know good and well, my father, may he rest in power, is probably like, boy, sit down. Right? Because we got to know a good win, and we got to be careful with our argument. We can't just be too intellectual that we can't lean into these people's experience. And we've got to be able to hear courageously. It's violent. We can shake our head and be like, no, that's not us. But it's violence coming towards our youth. So what does that mean? What does that mean? My last slide. This right here comes from a scholar that I had the opportunity to work with called Brigitte Kahl, amazing German scholar. And she uses this ancient to kind of describe ancient empirical forces that affected the Christian community at the time during the Roman empires. And this is an illustration based off of a Pauline thought where she says, deliverance out of this present evil age. I said, this is so apropos. It is a real present evil age. Every time we think about it, it's like, what's next? So this is a battle square. And in the battle square, just to offer you this, is how we have, in some way, a human connection and relationship. Now, some folk in here, I know we cannot, we don't necessarily engage in God, but we do engage with self. And that will intersect with the idea of those who we consider other, outside of ourselves, which is a cross. The other corner over here says law and life, right? How are people holding that tension in our human connection? How do they hold it? Some live by politics alone. You've heard me say that. Some will live by just a simple aesthetics and process of just living life. They are functional. They're like, I'm good, I got it, I'm great. I don't worry about politics. And we have a generation that is emerging from that space too, who are not interested in voting. Because they don't believe, they will tell you democracy is corrupt. Right? And at the same time, I can't lie to them as a millennial. Who would blame them? Because what do I see every time I put my voice out? Who's in power? Don't get me wrong, but even I wouldn't be able to get a job at 81. If I don't care how amazing my CV is. Right? And the very corner from law and life to come down are the hamartialities, which are sin or death. The existential things. I did something wrong. Something is wrong with me. Right? And these put us in conversations constantly. So what does this do for us? And why do I offer this? I offer this because I want us to think about what is the humanist called to do if we have to engage with some of this Christian nationalism. Number one, we have to realize our position is to hold folk accountable, no matter what tradition they come from. Because we understand the importance of human life, and we know the laws that exist here, and no one deserves to be met with injustice. If that's a value we understand, then I can guarantee you, you've already hit about 70% of most sacred texts. Because you're holding somebody accountable based off of values where they might use from a doctrine or God, you understand it from the very nature of being a human being and wanting to be treated with more respect in the world. That's 70% of sacred texts. All life is valuable, even down to the tree. We get that. Right? The next thing is counteract injustice. That is our work. Our work is to counteract the injustice that we see. That means to call it out. Don't be passive with it. We can't afford it. Also, that doesn't mean just call it out. Question it. Interrogate it. You have the right to question. That is your curiosity. It is your divine right to question. When you see something that doesn't make sense, ask somebody, make it make sense. That ain't clear. What's the formula? What's your political framework? What's your psychological framework? I run into so many of y'all. Y'all are so educated. I feel like I need to go get another book. And it doesn't matter how many things but what we have is we have a collective viewpoint that we can begin to shift things. The last two things I want us to think about is how we get people, especially with our active voices, how we can get more people in active voices so we can transgress the dialogue that is driving our political forces right now. We have to help transgress so that we can transcend our voices, the people's voices, and put it back to the people, not lobbyists, not folk who are just giving money and smoozing with the Supreme Court. Because you know they're the only ones that don't have ethics. That's a whole nother topic on another Sunday. Don't get me started, y'all. I had to tell Tim to get me seats because I said if I stand up, I'm gonna be loud. And lastly, is for us to handle our relational differences by looking at the battle square from a space of solidarity. As y'all have heard me say before, just want to remind you that in order for us to have clear solidarity, it is very much similar to the African trajectory of philosophy of, I am because we are. I need you to be in solidarity with this. I need us to be vigilant. As I say often to some friends of mine, I say, blessed are the vigilant, for they do not walk by faith, they walk by fact. They go by what they see. That is who we are. Do not back out of these conversations. Elevate them, question them, interrogate them. I invite you to do so, because that is what we're called to do. And so I leave you with those things today. And I thank you so much for your time. Now, hold, Jacob, y'all got words, right? Because you know I'm out of breath. Okay. I need some water, child. Y'all gonna have me singing. Man, y'all should know this. Okay. Boom, boom. And I'm just gonna say, can I just say, you and this violin, you and I, we gonna hang out later. All right. Hey.
darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should crumble to the sea, I won't cry. Shed a tear, just as you stand by me. I'm gonna stand next to you, Paul. Somebody. Come, Barb. Now we have Barb Lutz coming before us for the ass. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Barb Lutz, and I've been a member here for almost 19 years. I moved up here to take care of my mom after being gone for about 25 years. And the first thing I did was check around at the different Unitarian churches that were here. And I went to 4, and this is the one that I felt at home at. And one of the reasons why I still come here is because of the people and what we do. And I'm very happy to see you all this morning on such a nice day outside. Maybe a little hot. Anyway, so First Unitarian Society is a free, independent, and self-governing congregational humanist community. We are able to bring our message of justice and hope to the world because of the generosity of our friends and members in time, talent, and treasure. You can scan the QR code on the screen, which will take you to our giving page. There you will find several easy ways to contribute to our mission, including a link to our online giving form. Those of you in the building who wish to give cash or check, please stop by our office. Thank you for making the work of First Unitarian Society possible.
After assembly today, those in the building can enjoy some wonderful conversation and a mini meal downstairs. Yes, a mini meal. Yes, we feed you. So if this is the first time you're here, you get some food, y'all. What we have today is hamburgers, vegan hamburgers, brothworth. I hope I said that right. I say it so horribly, I feel. Thank you. All right. See, there we go. Some coleslaw, potato salad, and homegrown tomatoes, an apple crisp. So, during the summer month, we might be vibing a little bit different, but it's summertime. We're going to put on our shades. We're going to be fabulous. We get to enjoy this weather, and I hope y'all enjoy yourself. Amos, I need you to take it away, my friend. We're going to do it in a few minutes, I guess, because we got to extinguish this chalice. Paul is keeping me on point. I like Paul. Paul be keeping me on point. Paul was like, hey. Come on, Paul, that's it. Paul owned that chalice. Let me tell you something. This flame ain't done until you done. All right, extinguishing the chalice. Here we go. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our heart and in our minds until we come together again. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped in a kind of life? I had no model, not one. Born in Babylon, non-white, a woman, she says. What did I see but to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between sunshine and clay, my one hand holding tight in my other, saying, come celebrate with me, that every day something has tried to kill me and fail. That something has tried to kill me and fail. Lucille Clifton, come celebrate with me. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good to see you.
Good, good.
You had your inner 1970s 42nd Street going on there. With a little dig of yours, but that's all right.
I feel you. Good morning, my friend.
Good talk.
Thank you. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, you're so welcome.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're so powerful. It was amazing day.
Thank you.
Amazing. Very inspirational.
Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. So good.
It's an excellent service.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Y'all enjoy, please.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Syncopations. Because I have a friend who does